All right, y'all. So we have an update on student loan debt reduction here that I wanted to share with you. This is from the Associated Press. The headline is Biden administration is moving toward a narrower student loan relief targeting groups of borrowers. So, in other words, you guys remember the timeline here. Biden announced a student loan debt reduction plan, which was somewhat expansive, more expansive than almost anybody on the left thought it would be. And you remember the specific provisions of it, or roughly the specific provisions of it. It was up to $10,000 of student loan debt relief for certain people. I believe if you made $125,000 a year or less, you apply for that. And he did it using, it was an emergency justification, like a COVID-era justification that was originally used in the wake of the War on Terror era and the 9/11 era. And he used that justification because Trump had used that justification and gotten some student loan debt reduction through. So he tried that. The Supreme Court basically slapped it down. Well, lower court slapped it down. Then he appealed all the way to the Supreme Court. They slapped it down. Then he turned around and said, okay, well, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to invoke the Higher Education Act now to eliminate some student loan debt, which is what people on the left were kind of saying from the beginning. Hey, don't use that weird justification, the COVID justification. Use the Higher Education Act, where it appears relatively straightforward that you have the ability and the right to eliminate this student loan debt, especially since the federal government holds like 90% of the student loan debt, so you can do whatever the hell you want with it, right? And the Secretary of Education has that authority. So he invoked the Higher Education Act, and my thought was, great, that's awesome, especially because it looked like the goal was, let's just take the exact same plan, the exact same relief, which again was more expansive than most of us thought it would be, and let's do the same plan, but just do it through the Higher Education Act. That sounded great. Well, now we're learning, not exactly. Not exactly. So here are some of the specifics. This is directly from that article that I just read you the headline of. Here's who they want to forgive it for now. Borrowers whose balances exceed what they originally owed. Those with loans that entered repayment 25 or more years ago. Those who used loans to attend career training programs that led to unreasonable debt loads or insufficient earnings. Those who are eligible for other loan forgiveness programs but did not apply. And potentially, quote, those who are experiencing financial hardship that the current student loan system does not currently adequately address. So again, the framing here in the Associated Press is they are narrowing their student loan debt relief. And now these are the categories or the groups of people who will be eligible for student loan debt reduction. But look, at the end of the day, if the number, in the financial number in terms of relief that's being given out here is less than what the previous plan was, dude, this is like, what are you doing? I have no problem with this list of people giving them relief, but you also need to keep the same provisions that you had in the previous student loan debt reduction. You can't just say we're going to do this thing, and then it gets slapped down by the court, and they say, no, we're going to try it a different way. And then you can't just like remove a lot of the relief. Guys, at this point, I'm forced to ask this question. Joe, are you trying to lose the election? Like, are you actively trying to lose the election? Because you're certainly making it much more likely. Never mind, the horrific bombing campaign that Israel's doing in Gaza with our support and with our weapons that we give Israel. Never mind that. Biden has dropped 11 points since that bombing campaign started among Democrats. His approval is at 37% now. Young people are fleeing at 1,000 miles an hour. Arab Americans are fleeing at 1,000 miles an hour. 59% of Arab Americans supported Biden in 2020. Now it's down to 17%. And these aren't people that are going to vote for Trump. They'll either vote third party or just stay home. So at a time where you're hemorrhaging support, against, by the way, a rank authoritarian who wants to suspend the Constitution and who has 91 criminal charges against him. At this time right now, you come out and narrow the student loan debt. You should be expanding the student loan debt reduction. You should be out there saying, let's wipe all of the debt clean. Let's just wipe the debt slate clean. This is over. Student loan debt is not something that should be a thing in the first place. The way it works in this country, you can go to public elementary school, public middle school, public high school. Why shouldn't we have it so that for college as well, it's just paid for by your tax dollars and nobody has any debt when they get out into the real world? Just treat it the same way we treat like public high schools. Just have public college for everybody, no student loan debt. That's a very like primitive, draconian notion. There's a lot of other countries that don't have students with any loan debt whatsoever or very, very low cost in order to go to college. Here we load people up with debt. Instead of looking at what the Supreme Court did, invoking the Higher Education Act and expanding it, you're narrowing it. Dude, you must be trying to lose at this point. That's what it looks like. And understand, man, I was out there very loudly and very aggressively making what I viewed as an objective, empirical case based on policies that there is no comparison in analysis between Trump and Biden. There just isn't. Biden is just better if you care about progressive / liberal / leftist policy priorities. If you care about those things, this is not a subjective question. Biden just is better than Trump. He just is. But at this point in time, for him to start trying to turn the ship in the other direction, for him to reduce the amount of support that was given, again, never mind the helping support the slaughter of civilians in Gaza, which we shouldn't say never mind to that, but just for purposes of this conversation, just put that aside for a second. Now, even on the economic front, where you made some real gains, the National Labor Relations Board, much more people getting overtime pay, recognizing unions if a boss tries to union bust. These are huge, huge wins. Doing the executive order, which gives a $15 minimum wage to every federal government employee and contractor. Like, these are real wins that you could argue for on the merits of. Never mind when I get to the state level and talk about Minnesota Democrats and how good they did. But at this point in time, when you are historically weak, you want to make yourself weaker? You want to make young people not interested in voting for you? Guys, this is a warning for the Biden administration. It's a warning. I'm just describing what is the case. I'm not really giving my opinion. I'm not really putting a spin on this. What I'm saying is the numbers already show the people are fleeing him, and he's doing stuff now that will make more flee him. What does he think's going to happen here? If I narrow the student loan debt reduction, that'll get young people to sprint to the polls for me? No, the opposite is likely to happen. Now, look, if I'm steel manning his case, maybe he says, I think my original plan under the Higher Education Act would get slapped down too. So I'm trying to tailor make this so that it doesn't get slapped down. Maybe that's what he's thinking. They're like, hey, I really don't have an option. If I want anything to get through on student loan debt, I go in this direction. But look, under the Higher Education Act, I'm sorry, the plain face interpretation, in my opinion, is you can do whatever you want with that 90% of the student loan debt that is owned by the federal government. So again, that argument doesn't carry water. You should wipe the debt slate clean. And then if the Supreme Court slaps it down, okay, make a big show of it. Go to war against the Supreme Court. You know, make changing the rules around the court part of your reelection campaign. Hey, we're going to rein in the judicial tyrants. That's what we're going to do. And you could do it in a number of different ways. You could just do term limits, for example, right? That's just one rule. You could invoke the judicial stripping provisions of the Constitution, which say, hey, Congress has a right to say these certain things cannot be ruled on by the court. So there's ways to go around this, but instead he's capitulating and he's saying, I'm going to narrow the student loan debt reduction. Now, look, don't get it twisted. This is still, when all is said and done, more student loan debt reduction than Trump or any Republican would ever offer, right? But you're going to keep hemorrhaging support if you do this. You're going to keep hemorrhaging support. Look, I'm trying to look out for him, right? From a moral and ethical perspective, stop arming Israel as they slaughter innocent Palestinians. Stop reducing the student loan debt reduction. This is from like a moral and ethical perspective. But even if you put that aside and just say a raw electoral politics perspective, if you want to win, stop doing this. This is embarrassing. This is pathetic. And you're making it so that nobody could even put lipstick on the pig for you, right? That's what you're doing. Man, I don't know who's talking to him, what advice he's getting, but this is... And it scares me, right? Because then with this happening, him becoming less and less viable a candidate, and Trump is on the other side. I mean, you are rolling the dice with turning the country over to an absolute rank authoritarian. Lord only knows what Trump would do in a second term. I mean, we know some of it because he tells us, but it would be beyond miserable. And here we are. here we are. So for the love of God, Joe, you cannot narrow it. Either keep it the same as it was with the original plan, or the real answer is expand it. When you narrow it, God, you already got a lot of soft support, man, and people are fleeing you by the minute, and now you're making even more flee you. Imagine you're in the category that previously got the student loan debt reduction, right? You previously got it under the original plan. Then the court slaps it down, so you're pissed at the court. Then Biden says, it's okay, I'm going to do the Higher Education Act, and we're still going to do student loan debt reduction. But imagine you're in the group that was going to get the relief, and now you don't, because they narrowed it more. They narrowed the scope of the relief more. Do you have any idea how furious those people are and should be? He's got to get his head out of his ass. That's for damn sure. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.